Some scenes in Hollywood history were never supposed to feel real. But they did. Because the camera captured something the script never asked for. Raw pain, real tears, unspoken rage, and moments so honest that even the actors themselves couldn't explain what happened. For decades, audiences believed they were watching performances. They weren't. They were watching truth leak through the fiction. Tonight, we uncover 15 legendary stars whose most unforgettable moments on screen were never acted at all. Once you see behind the curtain, you'll never watch these films the same way again. Judy Garland's voice could make an entire generation believe in hope. But the girl singing Over the Rainbow wasn't performing longing, she was living it. Behind the innocent smile MGM sold to the world, Judy was exhausted, overworked, and controlled by studio executives who dictated her meals, her sleep, and even her emotions. Directors reportedly didn't need to coach her sadness. It was already there, buried just beneath the surface, waiting to escape the moment the cameras rolled. Colleagues later admitted that some of her most emotional close-ups required no direction at all, because Judy wasn't imagining pain. She was remembering it. Fans watching her sing believed they were witnessing pure movie magic. In truth, they were witnessing a teenager crumbling quietly under the weight of fame no child should carry. What looked like brilliant acting was often just Judy Garland allowing her real heartbreak to show, if only for a few seconds before the mask went back on. And that fragile honesty is exactly why her performances still break hearts today. But she wasn't the only star hiding real pain behind a performance. Clark Gable was Hollywood's ultimate leading man. But by the time he filmed his final movie, the man on screen wasn't playing a character. He was fighting for his life. During the making of The Misfits, Gable insisted on performing his own physically demanding stunts despite his failing health. Cast and crew noticed his exhaustion between takes, his labored breathing, the tremble in his hands that no script had written. What audiences saw as rugged toughness was actually a man pushing his body far past its limits. Just days after filming wrapped, Gable suffered a fatal heart attack. Suddenly, every scene took on a haunting new meaning. That weathered stare, that quiet vulnerability, wasn't performance. It was survival. Fans had no idea they were watching one of cinema's greatest icons say goodbye in real time. The Misfits became more than a film. It became a farewell captured entirely by accident. To this day, viewers who revisit his final scenes report an eerie feeling, as if Gable knew something the audience didn't. And soon, another legendary actress would carry heartbreak just as real onto the same set. Vivien Leigh gave one of the most devastating performances in film history, but few realized her breakdown on screen mirrored a battle happening off-screen. While filming A Streetcar Named Desire, Vivien was secretly struggling with bipolar disorder, a condition barely understood at the time. Co-stars noticed sudden shifts in her mood between takes, moments of manic energy followed by deep emotional collapse. Rather than fighting these episodes, director Elia Kazan allowed her true emotional instability to bleed directly into her performance. What audiences interpreted as masterful acting was, in reality, unfiltered psychological turmoil. Vivien later admitted she struggled to separate herself from her tormented character long after filming ended. The line between actress and role blurred so completely that even she couldn't always tell where Blanche Dubois ended and she began. Her Oscar-winning performance wasn't crafted through technique alone. It was carved from genuine suffering. Audiences were moved to tears without realizing they were watching a woman quietly falling apart in real time. Her raw vulnerability set a haunting precedent, one that another young rebel would soon take even further. James Dean lasted only 3 films, yet one single scene proved he never needed to act at all. While filming East of Eden, director Elia Kazan wanted pure, unscripted emotion from his young star. Instead of directing a performance, Kazan manipulated reality itself. He instructed actor Raymond Massey to genuinely provoke Dean off-camera, creating real tension between them before filming even began. When cameras finally rolled, James Dean's anger, confusion, and desperate need for approval weren't performed. They were completely real. His trembling voice, his tear-filled eyes, his raw desperation reaching out to a father figure who refused him love, all of it came from authentic emotional wounds Kazan intentionally exposed. Cast members were reportedly stunned by the intensity, unsure whether they were witnessing a performance or an emotional breakdown. That single unscripted moment became one of the most iconic scenes in cinema history. Proof that Dean's brilliance wasn't built on technique, but on unguarded truth. Kazan later confessed he felt a flicker of guilt for manipulating a boy so young and so trusting. Dean himself never fully spoke about how deeply that provoked anger had cut into him. Some who knew him best believed he carried that same wound quietly into every role afterward. Tragically, the world would only see a handful of these unforgettable moments before his life ended far too soon. But another star's physical pain would soon become just as unforgettable on screen. Montgomery Clift's career changed forever the night he crashed his car into a telephone pole, and Hollywood never fully recovered from what happened next. The accident shattered his face, requiring reconstructive surgery that left him in visible pain for months. Yet, incredibly, production on Raintree County continued, forcing Clift back in front of cameras while he was still healing. Viewers watching his reshot scenes had no idea the swelling, stiffness, and pained expressions weren't acting choices. They were genuine physical trauma captured in real time. Crew members later revealed that certain takes required minimal direction because Clift's suffering was simply too real to hide. His altered face and haunted eyes gave his performance an unsettling authenticity no makeup artist could replicate. Fans in theaters believed they were watching a broken character. In truth, they were watching a broken man. Close friends said he began relying on painkillers just to endure each day of filming. Elizabeth Taylor herself, who witnessed the crash firsthand, later admitted she never saw him fully recover his confidence again. Some crew members quietly wondered if the studio had pushed him back to work far too soon. Clift never fully recovered, physically or emotionally, and many believe this tragic accident marked the beginning of his slow decline. What critics once called brilliant acting was, in reality, real agony immortalized on film forever. But pain wasn't the only danger classic stars faced for the perfect shot. Lillian Gish. Long before stunt doubles and safety precautions existed, Lillian Gish nearly died for a single unforgettable scene. While filming Way Down East, director D.W. Griffith wanted a dramatic sequence of Gish drifting helplessly on an ice floe toward a waterfall. There was no special effect. The ice was real, the freezing river was real, and so was the danger. Gish insisted on performing the scene herself, trailing her bare hand in the icy water for authenticity. The cold was so severe it caused lasting nerve damage to her fingers, an injury she carried for the rest of her life. Her terrified expression on screen wasn't acting talent. It was genuine fear for her survival. Crew members later admitted they feared she might not survive the shoot at Tove. Griffith reportedly stood at the edge of the riverbank, watching in silence, unwilling to stop filming even as the danger grew. Gish later said she remembered praying quietly to herself between takes, unsure she would make it to shore. Decades afterward, she still couldn't fully bend two of her fingers because of the damage done that freezing day. Audiences watching believed they were witnessing masterful silent film performance. In truth, they were watching a woman risking her life for art, with absolutely no safety net beneath her. That haunting scene remains one of silent cinema's most powerful moments, precisely because nothing about it was staged. And soon, one legendary star would risk his life in an even more terrifying way. Buster Keaton built his entire legend on a single rule: never fake the danger. During Steamboat Bill Jr., he performed a stunt so dangerous that even seasoned crew members reportedly refused to watch. In the scene, an entire building facade collapses directly onto Keaton, who remains perfectly still, saved only by a small open window aligned precisely with his body. There were no special effects, no camera tricks, no safety wires. If Keaton had been off by mere inches, the falling structure would have crushed him instantly. He insisted on filming it exactly once, knowing there would be no second chance if something went wrong. His calm, expressionless face during the fall wasn't comedic acting. It was pure, terrifying focus needed to survive. Audiences laughed, unaware they were watching a man risking his life for a laugh. Crew members measured the window opening down to the exact inch, knowing there was zero room for human error. Some technicians reportedly walked away from set that day, unwilling to be responsible if something went wrong. Keaton later admitted even he felt a flicker of fear right before the wall came down. Decades later, filmmakers still call it one of the most dangerous stunts ever captured on camera. What looked like effortless comedy was, in reality, controlled terror executed to perfection. Buster Keaton didn't just entertain audiences, he gambled with his life to do it. And another star's private nightmare was about to become public property. Marilyn Monroe made audiences believe she was carefree, glamorous, untouchable. But behind the cameras, the truth was darker. During the filming of both Some Like It Hot and The Misfits, Marilyn suffered from crippling anxiety, insomnia, and emotional exhaustion that co-stars and crew struggled to hide from the public. Reports from set describe her trembling before scenes, unable to remember simple lines, overwhelmed by a pressure that had nothing to do with performance skill. What appeared as vulnerable, luminous acting was frequently unfiltered panic barely contained long enough for the camera to capture something usable. Co-stars later admitted certain emotional breakdowns weren't scripted at all. They were real. Marilyn wasn't playing fragile. She was fragile, desperately trying to hold herself together in front of millions of future viewers. Director Billy Wilder reportedly needed dozens of takes just to get a single simple line, not because Marilyn lacked talent, but because her fear kept overwhelming her. Some crew members remembered her locking herself away between scenes, unable to face anyone until she composed herself again. Co-star Tony Curtis later admitted the entire set often felt like it was holding its breath, waiting to see if she would make it through the day. Audiences fell in love with her softness, never realizing they were watching a woman quietly unraveling under expectations no person could reasonably survive. Her tragic death soon after only confirmed what insiders already knew. The sadness in her eyes was never fiction, and her tension with another actress on a different set would soon become one of Hollywood's most infamous stories. Bette Davis was known for fearless, commanding performances, but her most electric moments came from something far more personal than talent. While filming Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Davis and co-star Joan Crawford despised each other in real life, and that hatred bled directly into their scenes together. Crew members recalled genuine tension so thick it made filming unbearable at times. In one now infamous scene, Davis kicked Crawford with enough force to cause a real injury, later claiming the script simply called for it. Her cold stares, cruel expressions, and unsettling intensity toward Crawford weren't purely performance choices. They were authentic resentment finally allowed on camera. Audiences watching believed they were witnessing two brilliant actresses portraying rivalry. In truth, they were watching two women who genuinely couldn't stand one another, channeling real animosity into unforgettable cinema. Crew members remembered the set going eerily silent between takes, as neither woman would speak a single unnecessary word to the other. Davis reportedly kept a private list of grievances against Crawford, refusing to let a single one go unspoken for years. Even decades later, she rarely passed up a chance to bring up the bitterness that never truly faded. This bitter dynamic created some of the most tense, memorable scenes of both their careers. What looked like award-worthy acting was frequently just raw, unfiltered dislike finally given permission to exist on screen. Their feud didn't end when filming stopped, and neither did the impact left on the woman standing across from her. Joan Crawford spent her entire career building an image of icy control, and ironically, that same coldness became devastatingly real during her most famous rivalry. While working alongside Bette Davis, Crawford reportedly felt threatened, disrespected, and humiliated both on and off set. Insiders claim she wore weighted items during a pivotal scene specifically to injure Davis during a physical altercation, turning genuine hostility into visible tension audiences mistook for acting. Crawford's rigid posture, sharp glares, and barely concealed contempt weren't crafted through method techniques. They came from real personal anguish she couldn't hide from the camera. Behind her glamorous exterior, Crawford battled deep insecurity about aging in an industry that discarded actresses the moment youth faded. That fear, resentment, and quiet desperation seeped into every scene she filmed that year. Crew members noticed she often arrived on set hours early, meticulously composing herself as if bracing for battle rather than simply preparing to act. Some insiders claimed she genuinely feared Davis was trying to outshine her in every single frame they shared. By the film's final week, Crawford reportedly stopped speaking to almost everyone except her closest assistants. Fans applauded her chilling performance, unaware they were watching a woman fighting for professional survival in real time. Crawford's carefully built persona finally cracked under real pressure, revealing something far more vulnerable than Hollywood ever let the public see. Her private torment made history, but she wasn't the only star whose deepest emotions escaped through gritted teeth on camera. James Cagney delivered one of cinema's most explosive performances, but the fire behind his eyes wasn't manufactured by any script. While filming the unforgettable finale of White Heat, Cagney's character screams in triumphant madness atop an exploding gas tank. What audiences didn't know was that Cagney privately connected the scene's emotional collapse to genuine grief over his own mother's death. Colleagues noted his intensity shift dramatically the moment cameras rolled, as if something deeply personal took over completely. His manic laughter, wild eyes, and unhinged energy weren't purely technical performance choices. They were raw emotion escaping through a character built specifically to hold it. Crew members later admitted the moment felt uncomfortably real, as though they were witnessing something private rather than staged. Director Raoul Walsh reportedly said very little to him beforehand, sensing that any direction might disturb whatever Cagney was quietly channeling. Co-stars remembered an unsettling stillness in his eyes just before the cameras started rolling, as if he were somewhere else entirely. Cagney later admitted he barely remembered performing the scene at all once it ended. Audiences cheered the unforgettable finale, unaware they were watching a grieving son channel unbearable emotional pain into cinematic history. That single unscripted burst of authenticity became one of the most quoted scenes in film history. And soon, two other legendary stars would create movie magic under circumstances almost too chaotic to believe. Humphrey Bogart delivered one of the most romantic farewells in film history, but the emotional uncertainty behind his performance wasn't entirely intentional. During the filming of Casablanca, the ending remained unfinished for much of production, leaving Bogart genuinely unsure how his character's story would conclude. Reports from the set describe real confusion among the cast about which woman his character would ultimately choose. That uncertainty translated into performances filled with authentic hesitation, longing, and quiet inner conflict no script could fully manufacture. Bogart's subtle expressions of doubt weren't calculated acting choices. They mirrored his real lack of clarity about his character's fate. Audiences watching believed they were witnessing masterful restraint. In truth, they were watching a man genuinely unsure how his own story would end. Writers reportedly handed out new pages the very morning certain scenes were shot, leaving actors scrambling to absorb lines they had never seen before. Bogart later joked that he played the role the same way he lived his life, one uncertain day at a time. Crew members remembered him quietly asking the director for answers that never fully came until filming was nearly finished. That unpredictable emotional foundation gave Casablanca an authenticity still celebrated decades later. Few films have ever captured such genuine uncertainty so beautifully by complete accident, and the actress standing across from him carried the exact same emotional confusion into every unforgettable scene they shared together. Ingrid Bergman's heartbreaking performance in Casablanca became legendary, but few realized her on-screen uncertainty mirrored genuine confusion behind the camera. Because the film script kept changing throughout production, Bergman had no idea which man her character truly loved until the final days of filming. This left her performing entire scenes without knowing their ultimate emotional outcome, forcing raw, unguarded vulnerability into every glance and hesitation. Her trembling voice and teary eyes weren't crafted through rehearsed technique. They came from real personal uncertainty about her character's fate, something she later admitted haunted her throughout filming. Audiences interpreted her performance as breathtaking restraint and heartbreaking devotion. In truth, they were witnessing authentic emotional confusion beautifully captured by accident. Bergman later revealed she asked the director directly which man she should be falling for, only to be told simply to play it in between. That single vague instruction forced her to genuinely feel torn in every scene rather than perform it. Colleagues said her confusion was so convincing that some crew members believed she truly hadn't decided which man she preferred. That unpredictable uncertainty became one of the reasons Casablanca still resonates with audiences today. Bergman's genuine unfiltered vulnerability proved that sometimes the most powerful performances come from not knowing the answer at all. But one final legendary actor would soon prove that even a single improvised line could rewrite cinematic history forever. Marlon Brando redefined acting forever, but his most iconic scene almost didn't happen exactly as written. During the filming of On the Waterfront, the legendary cab scene required deep emotional vulnerability between Brando and co-star Rod Steiger. Rather than following the script rigidly, Brando allowed his real emotional instincts to guide the moment, adjusting his delivery, pacing, and physical reactions in ways the screenplay never anticipated. His quiet, wounded intensity during the famous "I could have been a contender" moment came from genuine spontaneous feeling rather than rehearsed technique. Crew members reportedly sensed something different happening the moment cameras rolled, an authenticity that felt less like performance and more like real emotional collapse. Audiences were captivated, unaware they were witnessing raw improvisational brilliance rather than carefully practiced dialogue. Director Elia Kazan reportedly let the camera keep rolling long after the scripted lines ended, sensing something honest was still unfolding. Rod Steiger later admitted he found himself reacting genuinely, forgetting for a moment that he was even performing at all. Brando himself rarely spoke about the scene afterward, as if even he understood something rare had happened that couldn't easily be repeated. That single unscripted moment changed the direction of modern acting entirely, proving vulnerability could be more powerful than perfection. Brando's willingness to abandon control created one of cinema's most imitated scenes ever filmed, but one final tragedy would soon prove that real grief could transform an entire film without a single planned rehearsal. Elizabeth Taylor gave one of her most devastating performances, but the tears audiences saw on screen weren't manufactured by any acting coach. While filming Giant, Taylor formed a close, meaningful friendship with co-star James Dean. Before production wrapped, Dean tragically died in a car accident, leaving cast and crew utterly devastated. Rather than pausing production entirely, several remaining scenes required Taylor to continue performing while processing genuine, unbearable grief in real time. Her trembling voice, distant expressions, and unmistakable sorrow weren't scripted emotional beats. They were authentic mourning captured directly on camera. Crew members later admitted certain scenes became almost unbearable to film, given how visibly real her heartbreak had become. Audiences watching believed they were witnessing extraordinary dramatic range. In truth, they were witnessing a young woman genuinely grieving a friend she would never see again. Director George Stevens reportedly considered pausing production entirely, unsure if Taylor could emotionally continue after hearing the news. She insisted on finishing her scenes anyway, saying it felt like the only way she could honor him properly. Crew members remembered her stepping away in tears the moment certain takes ended, unable to fully compose herself until she was alone. That unbearable loss gave her performance a devastating authenticity no rehearsal could ever replicate. It remains one of cinema's most quietly heartbreaking examples of real life bleeding directly into film.